Alright, what's going on? Everyone, Supreme Kami over here. So I'm gonna be doing the last bit of the alteration review for the Jagd Arche Gundam over here. So in terms of this Arche Gundam over here, this is it appears in the Double O series in terms of like the variation. So it's gonna be the Double O V timeline. I'm pretty sure that is more of like your manga series and whatnot. So that's why I'm not too familiar with it, or I didn't know there was this type of variation right there. But you can see just from the model of like the Arch Gundam, there is like a heavily, you can say like an influence from the original, the Throne's Eye. I don't know what was the original units from it, but there's like a really big, you can say, influence from what it was from the original Throne. Um, I think basically in the Double V series, I think every unit has its own variation. This one being a main suit that is for Alia Sachs. So he was a pretty problematic guy from the Double series, but I did not know he was going to be this problematic in game as well. So yeah, he's a little bit of a big issue in game right now because this, I have to say, like, if you're talking about this week's spam, I think the best unit you can be looking at is probably going to be this guy over here. Just the sheer amount, like what this actually brings to the table. I think this one is definitely, if I were to say to summon on, this one has to be it. I do have the stat line right here already. Like from the stat line over here, you don't see like anything like too particularly good, right? You're not seeing something that's like, oh, this one is like the most dominant part of the, let's say in terms of stat, but you got to look deeper into just the base stat line, I guess, or the parameter. I think you got to look at the portrait. I think the portrait is definitely got to be the most dominating factor for this guy over here. So let's actually start from the top. In the other video, when I was doing the Lifelines Heavens already, I talked about like the snippets of like what you guys can kind of look at. So this video, I'm just gonna dive right into the alteration review. So it shouldn't take up too much of the time. But let's see in terms of the head. I guess the first thing to just kind of note from this guy, the Arch Gundam, this version of it from the Double V is, I, I mean, like even throughout the series, I feel like with the fighting style of Ali Asachi, he is more of like he's like more of like an all rounder. So you're gonna see some pretty evenly distributed stat across both melee and shot. But in terms of the head, I think the head is definitely the first part you just completely say. This is not going to be it for anyone just because of the fact you're getting a recovery of 20 armor gradually, which is completely say to yourself, this is a hot skip right here. Obviously, the second trait is something you kind of making for it. But in terms of like what you want to bring in terms of, like bring to the table for both a melee and shooter, this one is definitely not going to be doing it itself over here. So word tag wise, it's going to be heavily centric towards a shooter build. I think this is in this right here, the base model or the model for the Jagd Arche Gundam is, I would say, is heavily leaning towards a shooter type build. But you guys are going to be really surprised by on how they built this guy in a bit. I'm not sure why they put it as just a double series, which is not accurate. But I don't know, man. it is what it is. But this one, the head is nope. You can just completely skip that right away. In terms of the torso over here, you can see some incredibly high armor stat right there already, breaking the 7,000 berry. In terms of the overall stat, you see that it's going to be 6,000 for melee and then 5,000 for the shot attack, which is not even enough. But like 6,000 like range right now is there's so many dominating chests in terms of melee. So I'm gonna list all the different types, but I'm not gonna go into like each individual portrait because like that will probably take hours and hours, like just talking to you guys. Like, all right, why is this one better than this one, and why is this one better than this one, right? So I will list out what are the stats and all that, but granted, don't look at the stat too much into it. I think you guys do have to look into the underneath part of it, whether or not it's an EXQ based part or a portrait based part. I think that will be a pretty a big influence of whether or not this part is good or not. This portrait over here is one of those like you have your enemy power reduction type over here. So if you're someone who likes those kind of mechanics where you want to continuously reduce your enemy, maybe shooting melee or even EXQ power, I think this is something you can be looking for into it. I believe when I was reviewing for the Lifelines Heavens, I think the arm also has that type of gimmick as well. So if you guys are into those specifics build, this arm is definitely going to be it. But if you guys are not interested in that and just purely going for like offensive values, so meaning you just like to do big damage, big output, this one's probably not going to be it for you. Just because the first portrait is already like a enemy melee power reduced by 30% when you are using a dual sabers category melee weapon. So I think that is probably a big bummer looking at this right here. In terms of the chest over here, tag wise, this one does want you to use high mobility. So this is where you can see some signs of, oh, this unit is a dual type build. Just because of that, I would have to say this unit right here, by how they build this is completely acceptable to run this as a dual type build, just because of how they did it. This one's definitely going to be good because the EX skill power does not discriminate whether or not only giving it to only shooting EX skill or not giving it to melee. This one works for both, so you guys should have no problem outputting both shooting and melee EX skill at all. So this one is good, right? But like I said, if you guys are not into those like let's say power reduction type build, this one is probably not going to be it. So this one is going to be really situational. For me personally, I'm not that type of player who likes to do like a reduction build, for example. So that's my opinion. But if you guys are into that, definitely going to be a good solid choice right here as well. Word check, high mobility, and high firepower. So definitely a more of like a bridge high firepower right there. So that is pretty good, I would say. That high firepower tag is probably a crucial tag when you're trying to build out that dual type build. So that is that right there. High mobility also does support a little bit of a shot department as well as that shot defense up by 5%, which is good. You know, if you guys are looking at that, depending on what gears you guys are looking at, I think that can be beneficial as well. You know, defensive value for that melee is definitely up there, 5,500 on that. Yeah, this one is definitely good. But I think the big money from the Arche Gundam over here is probably going to be the arm right here. In terms of the stat, I'll give you that as rank 16. The highest we have in game currently is the double shield quanta. That is of a 40% trade. So you would assume that one is probably the best melee arm to be using. But this is the cash they throwing it at you guys right here. Buff effect skill up by 30%. I will have to argue this trade right here is by far the best trade they can give. This is the most premium trade because like whatever EX skill damage you're doing with this right here, that's gonna magnify it by a bajillion. Bajillion is exaggeration, but if you pair these kind of portrait with more additional, if I was to have this one maxed up for my build personally, I think I will be looking at around 110 buff EX skill effects up. How this actually works, right? Let me just give you guys a quick example. So let me just take a look at EX skill. So you see these right here, right? Raise melee attack of your squad by 30%, and then raise your shot attack of your squad by 20%, right? So what you take is you take the arm second low battery. A video will not continue unless there's a low battery, right? I think every time I record, always a low battery. But all right, moving back to this, right? How that second portrait actually works. So that buff effect skills up by 30%. What that actually do, you take that 30% and then you basically add on to whatever that 30%, whatever the effects is right over here. So instead of dealing 30% or increasing 30% to your overall squad, you're actually increasing that by it's gonna be 60%, and then same goes for the shot attack. It's not gonna be 20. It's gonna be 50 at the end of the day. So you see why those portraits are a lot more powerful when you guys are let's say trying to solo maybe like a like one of those limited time multi-mission boss like your Big Sam, your Hashmal, Perfect Strike, and then whatever the other one is, right? That's how people are able to kind of solo the event by themselves because of those portrait. If my build were to have that 110%, so you're looking at around 140% buff to your overall squad. So that's why if you combine a lot of these together, you're gonna have a significantly massive buff, right? But I'll say the downside to this, right? The downside to those traits. So let me go back to the light lens, for example, like the custom EX skill from this over here. As you guys can see, there's no additional effects coming out from this EX skill over here. So if I were to use those portrait, for example, it will be completely useless. because none of the EX skill on this one over here has any buffings or whatnot. So that's why you want to make sure when you guys do use those buff effects, trait, you gotta make sure whatever EX skill you're using has at least some sort of buff. I think, let's say even 1%. Even if you're coming in with a 1% buff to whatever, maybe melee attack, shooting attack, I think that would be even beneficial. Just having that 1% will allow you to add whatever other percentage you have. So that's why I would say the arm is definitely the best part you're looking at. But let's talk about some downsides to this over here. Obviously, there's every part has its own pros and cons. I think the con for this one is definitely going to be the restriction of, a tech attribute. I think this is definitely going to tie into only a tech attribute, which is not the best, So let's say in arena, I want to build out 3 typing just in preparation, right? The worst case scenario is my P and S attribute is not gonna get the benefit of this, so I think that's the only con I can kind of get this to over here. The stat line of this is only 11,200, which is, I would say, kind of low balling it from what we have been seeing, but I think being that low has its own justification just because of this portrait over here. If anyone is looking at this is definitely the part you want to be looking at. You can argue that the word tag is 5 and Ace exclusive, which is not good at all, right? I will give it to that. That's another con right there. You're not gonna run high Ace exclusive when it should have been, right? But granted, we do have 18 portrait or 18 tech slot possible. So if you guys can satisfy the Ace exclusive condition right here, I think it'll be totally fine. Or you can just come over here, some big scale alteration will definitely fix it up. I think the only one that has high firepower is probably the L Strike. Oh, not even that. Which one has? I think this one maybe. I don't. Yeah. No, this one is not gonna work as well because you do have Gundam types. So I don't think there's going to be any big skill that can save it. So that can be a problem. Yeah, that's gonna be a problem. Let me look at this one over here. Yeah, this one's not gonna save it at all. So I don't think there's gonna be any big skill option you want to be looking at. In terms of being able to change out your word tag wise over here, so that can be a problem. But like I said, there's obviously going to be bigger cons than pros for this one over here, just because they're giving the extremely premium trait right there. But if you guys can kind of work things out and just kind of satisfy one part trait slot or word tag slot, I think it will be completely worth it. But at the end of the day, but if you guys are not able to satisfy the requirement or not able to just build it out, I would say it's completely fine. I'm just letting you guys know the benefit of this, right? Even a shot attack is not too shabby at all. Coming in at 5,000, like, it's good. Like, this arm is something I hope I can pull. I still have not summoned for it yet. I probably will summon after recording this because I do want to kind of get a feel like, all right, which part do I really need, right? So this one is definitely a part that is on my wish list. So hopefully I can pull two of the arms, and then I'll be a happy camper, right? Yeah, this one definitely 10 out of 10. But the restriction right there, I'll kind of dump it down to a 7 out of 10, for example, just because it's not gonna be user friendly, for example, trying to build around that. So that's gonna be my thoughts on that. But definitely good, definitely gonna be a-okay with that. All right, moving on to the leg over here. In terms of leg, this is currently the second in place in terms of leg right there. First in place, we do have the Life Balance Heavens, which is a 40% trait and also the rank number 1 currently. I originally thought I can use the leg, but I remember the trait for the Life Balance is the Infighter, which I cannot really run. So I'm like, okay, I guess I have to wait for Infighter. In terms of leg over here, it does look a little bit funny with those like really extremely long skirt right there. I believe what this side skirt can hold, you can hold multiple things. I think you can hold your GM fangs. I think you can also hold some GM missiles, I believe. And there's some other GMs, some other types of weapon which I forgot already. In terms of this leg over here, it's definitely going to be a more of like a dual type build again with that word tag, high firepower and high mobility. So you definitely do have some wiggle room to, let's say, get high firepower, or let's say get close combat, or maybe even trying to get pro attack, right? I think that's totally fine. In terms of this leg over here, since it's gonna be based on the EX skill, so in terms of sub slot, I think the best case scenario is try to see if you can sub slot a big scale, or even if you can't find a big scale, for example, I think any other that has a good portrait would definitely save the leg, because you have the stat right there already, right? I think what is missing is definitely gonna be the sub slot option. Giving it a trait will tremendously, boost whatever power you need to be doing. In terms of this EX skill over here, this is going to be a G and Fang. So we do have the original Arche Gundam, the non-variation type. So I do want to do a quick comparison to see, what are we looking at over here. So EX skill is going to be Beam and then Alterated. So I want to see, is it the same effects, right? Yes, completely the same thing. So I don't see a reason that this one is not going to be doing the same amount of damage, for example, than what the Sokai version is, obviously. But obviously, the Sokai one has better stats. If you guys are not using it just purely for the EX skill, I would definitely say, oh, it's good for that the stat line, obviously. But but if you purely, let's say, I want to use the GFN, I think the original Arche Gundam, the welfare version is definitely going to be something that is good to be using. Because you're comparing to a level 1 EX skill to a level 10 free to play, so 10 out of 10 you gotta be using free to play, right? So I would not say this one is the biggest investment, but the stat is something completely different. If you do want to alterate this leg, just because of the stat, I would say it's completely fine, right? That is that right there. All right, moving on to the backpack over here. In terms of the backpack, man, those armor is like crazy. 7,000 armor right there. Wow, this unit is, yeah, they definitely did a excellent job on this guy over here. But in terms of the life last, man, if you had to pick a hypothetically pick one banner to summon off for this week, whatever, next week or whatsoever, I think this one has to be the one you want to be summoning on. For example, obviously you don't have to summon on, but if anyone is looking for a recommendation of like, all right, which one do I want to be summoning, right? This one is, I would say this banner has more value than you would say the Lifelines, for example. Lifelines obviously does have is 40% trait, but and better stats in terms of different parts. But I feel like this one, just overall to me, is a more valued it, just because even the EX skill over here, like look at how many effects this one is packing. Like what? Come on now, like the lifelines is definitely slacking right there in terms of those effects that you can be giving. In terms of stat, this one is coming in number 5 in terms of melee, and then shot is just a little bit underwhelming, just coming in at 4,000, which I think is a completely okay-ish. In terms of some word chat, you're looking at over here, high firepower and high mobility, so this one is going to be continuing to support that dual type build, no problem. This one is going to be your Trinity hunting over here, so carry out a fuzzy of attacks with your GN high mega cannon, or high mega excuse me, high mega launcher and GM buster sword. So it's that little the beam cannon up from the right hand shoulder over there, and also gonna get a raise of a melee attack up by 39% and then 29% to your squad, or shot attack to your squad. In your squad also you get a non-flinching for a duration of time. So that is like, this right here is perfect, right? This one covered both two things right here, both melee and shot shooter. So this one is gonna be a pretty good supporting EX skill right there nonetheless. Also non-flinching, so if you're facing against some big scale enemy, like let's say masquerade enemies, you're not gonna be able to get knocked down. So this is good. This one is definitely, in terms of like comparing to power wise, it doesn't really matter because most of these cutscene EX skill, I don't think that one is, right? Yeah, let me see. Yeah, this one is not as power, so I cannot say that. If I would definitely say this one it's gonna be a little definitely better. This one is S power, but in terms of first time usage, you're looking at a little bit of a longer timer, which I think is it really depends, right? If you guys do have good initial charge EX skill or initial charge boost, then you're good. But if you guys are not rocking any of that, I would say the lifelines is going to be a lot easier to execute. But this one with all those effects, I cannot give it a no. This one is just too good, right? Yeah, this one is definitely going to be good for your stat purposes, for your main build. Definitely going to be good in terms of your EX skill base over here. So this one is good. Like, like what else can I say, right? Yeah, this one's good. All right, moving on to the melee weapon over here. Yeah, they are continue to stack these over here with some insanely high stat over here. Just purely looking at this from the dual saber category, this is looking at rank number 5 in terms of your shot department. Rank number 1 as well. But if you want to compare the overall gist of it, I think that's gonna be a little bit too much on the list. Just because there's just so many ranged weapons, you know, or melee weapons, so we don't want to be comparing with every category, right? For example, so this one is gonna be a double saber shear over here, so it's gonna cleave both with G and Buster Sword in both hands over here. Wow, A minus pierce and A minus power. Wow, this is crazy good. I'm pretty sure in terms of damage wise, it's gonna be pretty good. I'm not gonna be giving any additional effects down there, so that's a little bit of a bummer, I would say. But I'm pretty sure this is just a pretty generic type of EX over here. But in terms of power and pierce, is definitely top of the line that you're looking at over here. So not bad overall. Definitely not bad right here. All right, the next thing we need. All right, the next thing right here, the dual rifles is our next best 40% we're looking at over here. So finally, the shooter type is getting some love this week over here, with the release of the new perfect. What is it? Not perfect. Excuse me. The 4 armor unicorn, the leg giving a 40% trait, and then now this one over here, the GM Buster Sword rifle mode, giving us another 40% trait. So this word tag over here is definitely going to be a main supporter for a shooter build. Half hour power and ace exclusive, definitely no problem with that. So in terms of what you look at in terms of the portrait, man, this is good. This right here is gonna completely replace what I have in terms of the double saber beam rifle. Man, that build project just got outclassed by this over here, man. I mean, I've been using the double saber beam rifle for quite a long time already, so I guess it's just about time to give it up. Like you're looking at 12,714. This is currently the best rifle you can be using in terms of your shooter build over here. So this one, if you want to get anything, for example, this has to be it. This one, and then the arm. There's not gonna be any like I would say there's not gonna be any type of other suggestions saying these two are not good, right? So that's that. Like I don't have any other words for this one over here. Definitely a must-have for sure. You know, just the pure amount of like percentage you're getting at it over here, 80% in total. Man, this is good. Like look at that stat. Like even without the change gear with that shot defense, you're looking at 11,800, which is like I would say top 10 already in terms of what you're looking at. But if you're looking at those change gear, add 30% of that 2,900 to that shot attack. Whew, man, this is absurd right here. So I think that should be pretty much it. I think you guys get the overall gist of like, all right, which one is good out of the Arche Gundam over here. Arms and the rifle is definitely something you got to be looking at. That's for sure, right? I think those are probably the only two I would definitely recommend for sure. I think the other parts are more of like really depends on what you guys already have in game or in your box. I think in that point you can kind of like decide whether or not you need any of the other part, because like this one over here is not going to be supporting a dual type, not going to be a double boosting, so you're not anything too impressive. In terms of trade, this one is like completely useless, I would say. This one is already outclassed by a welfare in terms of the EX skill, but stat is definitely there. I don't have much to say about the backpack and then the melee weapon. I think they're both pretty solid in terms of what the EX skill has to offer. But if you ask me in terms of stat, they can be better, you know. Definitely they could be better. So I'll leave it just to that. The two recommendation for this one is definitely gonna be the arm and then like the must have, right? The arm and then the rifle. So I think those are just gonna be my recommendations. So hopefully if you guys are gonna be pulling, for example, just pulling it, hopefully you guys can get you know, those two recommendations right there. So that being said, this will be it for this alteration over here. So that, and then I will catch you guys all on the next one.